Hello everyone, my name is OhMyJeeves and welcome to the Hello World Let's Play series, which can only be described as, you guessed it, a blockbuster. It's episode 4 and today we're going to work on some more dye farms. Now if you've been keeping up with the series so far, you'll know I'm in the process of filling my ender chest with shulker boxes of useful stuff, and one of those boxes is dye, so we can easily access a better range of colours in our builds. Now we've already been working on dye farms in the last couple of episodes. We have an absolutely enormous squid farm that produces ink sacs for black dye and bones for white dye. We have an iron farm which is pre-existed prior to this series, which produces poppies for red dye, and in the very last episode we built a cocoa bean farm which you can see behind me, which produces brown dye. So with black, white, red and brown done, that leaves green, blue, yellow to go, which we can actually get all from 2 farms. That's right, just 2. So we need a cactus farm for green dye and a flower farm for blue and yellow dye, and a bunch of other extra dye colours too, which is pretty awesome. So for this episode we're going to try and get both of those farms complete. Couple of things I forgot to mention. I did previously say I was going to build the dye farms on the squid farm platform, but then decided not to for a couple of reasons. The first and technical reason is the squid farm from an AFK point of view is the fastest of all the dye farms. So it's okay to be there for a few minutes to get what I need and leave, whereas the other farms are much slower. So it makes far more sense they're in my base where I spend about 90% of my time and they can all be ticking away in the background while I'm working on other things. For instance, while I build today's farms, the cocoa beans are going to be growing here, literally on the other side of the floor from where I plan on building. The second and less technical reason for this is that I dug out underneath my base all the way down to the bedrock with a floor every 10 blocks or so, purely for the intention of housing as many farms as possible within my base. So if we're not going to start filling these areas up with farms, we are going to run out of things to fill my base very, very quickly, and it would have made all of this process absolutely, completely and utterly pointless. So before we get to building the farms in survival, I wanted to stop in my redstone testing world so I can take you through the farms I've chosen, how they work and what my plans are. I think the best approach for this is if I take you through them one at a time, so I'll talk you through the farm in the redstone testing world, then do a time lapse of me building it in survival, and then come back and do the same process again for the other farm. So let's start with the cactus farm. Now before we start, I just want to turn around and say that I found this farm on Navy Nexus's channel. If you're interested in building super compact and super efficient farms, you should definitely head there and check it out, because he's got some absolutely fantastic designs, including this one. So with that said, we should probably look at some cactus growing mechanics and how this farm actually works before we get into the detail of some of the actual circuitry. So if we come over to this much smaller looking thing over here, this is going to allow me to explain talking about zero ticking cactuses. So a common myth in 1.16 is that zero ticking was kind of like got rid of or fixed or resolved or stuff, whereas actually that's not actually apparently true. It does still exist in certain forms. It's just a lot of the typical forms that were being used for, I think it was a sugarcane farm, were removed. So just to give you an idea of this, we've got a clock on this side here, which if I hit that lever kicks off. It pushes the block under this sand block across and back, which updates this sand block, which is the one below the one that the cactus is growing on, and each time that block updates, it's got more chance of it growing. So if I smash that, we should now see in a few seconds or so it grow again like that. Hence the cactus grows much faster doing this than if we left it to do its own thing. And man, is it super satisfying when you're explaining something in redstone and it actually works correctly on the recording. Honestly, I was sat there being all like, oh, and this is how the zero ticking of the cactus farm works, blah 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 blah, and what should happen when I break this block is it should grow. Thinking to myself, oh god, please let this cactus grow, because it could have just been the most infuriating thing, and it did. It just worked first time, and I'm so happy. Now we've discussed that mechanic, we can talk a little bit more about how this farm works. So I think personally it looks much more complicated than it actually is, purely because of how compact the design is. But really there's only 3 circuits you actually have to know about. The first of which is here in blue, which is the clock. Now that clock, it looks slightly different, but it is exactly the same as the same clock that we've got going over here. So to give you a brief explanation of that, this lever here is nothing to do with the actual circuit, it is a stopper. So if I take that off, the clock will run. Now, the reason the stopper works is because if I turn that on, it powers this block here. This block then powers this repeater, which powers this block, which powers the redstone dust below it, which means that this torch here is depowered. So if I just knock that, you can see there that the torch is on or off. Now, if I turn this lever so that it is off rather than on, it then means that this repeater is off, this is therefore not powered, this is therefore not powered, which means the torch turns back on. And that starts the circuit, because what happens is that when that torch goes on, it then powers this block above it, which then powers the repeater, which then powers this block, which powers the dot below, which then powers this block. So it ends up flicking this torch on and off continuously in a very, very small and compact circuit, just like that.
I don't know about you guys, but the word powered doesn't even sound like a word right now. I mean, powered. I said the word powered so many times in that clip. Honestly, I just watched it back, and yeah, not the clearest of explanations. Hopefully, you guys made something of it though.
The second circuit that we've got of our 3 in this farm, which is marked in yellow, isn't so much a circuit. It's literally just pushing the redstone power from the clock down 2 lines that go either side of the farm. So we've got one here that's powering 4 pistons on this side, and then we've got one here that's powering another 4 pistons on this side. So not so much a circuit, it's literally just taking the pulse from the clock and moving it down to then power these pistons on and off. And these pistons that are getting powered on and off is exactly the same as the piston that's back here that's pushing sand backwards and forwards. Now you can't see this because I've actually had to block all of it off for the farm build, but if I come around the very, very front and you look through the gap just above the repeater when I hit this, you'll see the sand is going backwards and forwards.
Jeez, and if you thought powered didn't sound like a word, then piston definitely doesn't sound like a word now. Honestly, there's so much of the P sound in redstone builds. Repeaters, pistons, pushing. Oh, it's too much. It's too much.
Okay, so the third and final circuit of this farm is the red circuit at the top, which is pretty much the same as the yellow circuit we saw earlier at the bottom. It is just a redstone line that is powering a number of pistons, and it is actually attached still to this blue clock at the front, so it will power on and off in exactly the same way that the pistons at the bottom do. And the way we've done that is that there's literally a redstone torch tower here on the side, so as this yellow line turns on and off, it also travels up the torch tower and turns this top red line on and off, and those pistons are the ones that essentially cut the cactus or push the cactus off of the top of there, which pushes quite nicely, as you can see, into a water stream, which goes into a hopper at the end to pick up all of the drops. Now, just a quick mention is that the reason we've got these glass planes in the... The reason we've got these glass panes in the middle here is just to stop it pushing the cactus all the way across onto the sort of solid blocks the opposite side. The reason we can't fill those is because if you place a solid block next to a cactus, it destroys the cactus.
Wow, this episode has got super technical and super serious super quickly. Right, guys, everyone just take a breath and let's get back into it.
So that leaves only one more thing to talk about for this design, and that is the small adaptations that I have made. So the first thing that I've done is I have moved the position of the lever for this clock 1 block forward, which now means we have a front face that we can work with in order to sort of build a nice pretty looking front to this and hide all of the redstone. And the other thing that I have done is that this hopper previously on the original used to feed directly into a set of chests which were really high, but I thought we'd have a little bit of fun in terms of actually shooting them out of a dropper and have the chest much lower so it's more accessible to the player. So if we now hit this switch on, we get this really fun little sort of cactus throwing effect that comes out of the dropper as the drops come in and flies down into this hopper here collected by the chest. Don't worry, on the actual design I will sort of cover up some more of this open space so that we don't lose any of the drops. But that's about it. I lied. I'm sorry, guys. I had to adapt my adaptation. This is why you don't change other people's redstone builds. I noticed there was a bug. Basically, that iron block there was where the hopper was, but it's really important that's a solid block, otherwise it breaks that sound mechanic. So it meant that this little cactus here kept continuously breaking, and I couldn't work out why. So I've had to move the hopper forward one, and then the dropper left one, and then other than that, the little shoot mechanic is now exactly the same. So I think I fixed that now, and then I've obviously also updated this design to sort of match as well. Oh yeah, I completely forgot to mention the fact that I came up with a pretty funky looking design for the front of this thing, which is probably the most fun thing that I've done in the entire first section of this video. Anyway, it's enough talking from me, let's get into a time lapse. Well guys, there you have it, the cactus farm is now finished and in place. Yeah, we've got a little gap here in the glass where I can just switch the lever on. We see the cactus just flying out of the little dropper chute. This is so much better than I was hoping it was going to be. Look at it, it just fires cactus out. Just as I turn on this shot, of course, it stops firing cactus. There we go, look, it just fires the cactus out. How entertaining is that? Oh, that's so much fun. I love the fact I changed this little dropper system. That is brilliant. Oh dear. Anyway, in all the time I've been standing here, we have managed to start collecting up some cactus, which is great. But I've also noticed that if I look over here, our cocoa bean farm is all fully grown. Look at that. Oh, shh, cows, they're so noisy. It's just so noisy. I had to put them down on this floor because literally I had them up underneath my storage room at one point, and honestly, all you can hear is just continuous mooing from underneath. It's honestly, it's just, I had to move them. It was really, really awkward. I literally put a slime block on the floor and cut a hole underneath them. It was very fun, entertaining. Anyway, I'm getting distracted again. So yeah, let's push this and collect up some cocoa beans. That is so satisfying. I honestly don't think there's ever going to be a time when I push that button and I don't just feel really good about watching all of the cocoa beans drop like that. It's honestly awesome. And now that the cactus farm is finished, it's about time we head back into our redstone testing world and take a look at the flower farm and get started with that. So before we take a more detailed look at the farm itself, we want to have a quick discussion about flower growth mechanics. You can see we've got a flower over there on a flat level world, and if I come around and hit this with bone meal, you'll see it grows a couple of flowers, whereas if I come over here to this one, which is down another level, and I hit this with bone meal, you can see instantly it grows a lot more flowers a lot more quickly. And now that we've had a quick chat about growth mechanics and how this farm is different from other flower farms, it's probably a good time to get into how this farm actually works. So if we come around the back, the first of the two concepts is this item delivery system, which sits here at the back, which we're going to talk about in a bit. And the second is the actual harvesting system and bone meal system, which sits in the middle, which is where we're going to start. So strap yourselves in, it's about to get technical. So if we now come underneath here and the other side of this staircase and we look up, there is a lever. Now, that block there is the dispenser, which is looking out onto this block, which is where the flower is. So when I turn this lever on, this starts the farm and the harvesting process. So when I hit that lever, it powers this dispenser, which starts shooting bone meal at the flower, which starts growing flowers. It also powers this observer, powers the sticky piston, which it's attached to, which pushes this observer facing into the observer that's facing downwards, which creates what's called an observer clock. That means if we come up to the top of the farm now, you can see this is the observer, top the sort of the back face of the observer up here, and that pulse, that observer clock pulse, is going to send power down these redstone lines, and those redstone lines are going to power 2 rows of pistons below the blocks at each end. When those pistons are powered, it sort of shimmies the grass backwards and forwards, and it's that shimmying process that allows us to actually, for the flowers to drop. And you can just see here, in these little gaps where it's not concurrently running, that we have got a rail system that operates underneath that grass shimmy system. Try that again. Here you go. This is a better view of it. If we come up here, you can see we've got some minecart rails which operate back out to that bit at the back, which we can now go and have a quick chat about. When I sat down to plan this episode, I thought it was a great idea to do both of the remaining dye farms in one hit. I thought we can move away from dye farms in future episodes, and it'd be a nice proper redstone chat, work chat, time lapses. I thought, yeah, it's going to be a really, really cool episode. And I'm starting to look at this now and I'm thinking, maybe this is just a bit much. So, I'm committed now, but the best I can offer you is this little clip here. I have no idea how this has happened. There is a slime in my cocoa bean farm, folks. There's literally a slime inside my cocoa bean farm. What are you doing in here, mate? What are you doing in here? This is so funny. Are they all going to appear in here? Oh, this is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Just killing some slime. Do they all float towards the middle as well? It's literally working like a little squid mob farm. How funny. Well, that's a few more slime balls added to the collection. Let's get back to the flower farm. Okay, so I have to admit, I think this has got to be one of the funkiest item collection systems that I have seen, and I absolutely love it. I personally haven't come across it in any farms that I've built so far, but I'm definitely hoping I get a chance to use it again. So let's see if I can try and explain to you how this thing works. So you've got some hopper minecarts that are running backwards and forward collecting drops. Now when they collect drops, they come up this powered rail, and they stop these hoppers below, start taking the items out of the hopper minecarts and sending them into the chest. Now, when that happens and items go into this hopper here, this comparator gets powered. And when that comparator gets powered, that powers this block over here, which powers this redstone dust, which powers this block, which powers this piston. Obviously that means the piston fires, but we actually just need it there so we can power this torch. To re-explain that again, comparator powers this block, that powers the dust powers the block above, that powers the piston. Because the piston is powered, that means that this torch will turn off. It means it stops the minecart hopper on top of there while it fully unloads, and then once this is empty again, this becomes depowered, that torch turns back on, and then that sends the hopper minecart back on its merry way. Now, a nice little addition to this is to stop the minecart sort of slipping back down that slope for any reason or other weird movement mechanics that we've seen in the game. There's these little fence posts, and these fence posts will turn on and off as and when this torch is powered or not powered. So if I remove this torch, you'll see that the gate shuts, and if I put it back, you'll see it opens. And that's pretty much it. And the final thing we need to talk about for this particular farm is the design itself. So you can see already that I have done the front face of this in creative mode, but I will just kind of wing the rest of it in survival. I'm not going to bother to try and do the whole thing. It's just a concept, and I've gone for this polished granite look because that with the grass very much reminds me of your classic Great British Garden, where, you know, these look like proper little garden flower pots. And I just think it looks nice. I think it's different, I think it's interesting, and I think it suits the style of farm. And that is definitely enough redstone chit chat. So let's get back into survival and build this thing. Start the time lapse. finally done it. We've completed both farms. They are here in my base, in survival, ready to go, working, all that jazz, all of that redstone chit-chat, all of that effort. Completely worth it. I'm really pleased with how these have turned out, and now we can create plenty of dye. And if we take a quick look in here, you'll see that's exactly what we've done. We have got 3 full stacks of every primary coloured dye, and then 2 additional colours I think we're more likely to use. So the dye box, I'm really pleased to say, wait for it, it's finished. How awesome is that? I'm so happy. Now, you might have also noticed that in my inventory I've got 1 more extra stack of all of those colours. And I've done that for a reason, because we're nice. Yellow's pretty good to us. And I thought we would give him a stack of each of the dyes. So, I have just come through to the Nether. We're going to head towards the post office, and we are going to leave Yellow a little dye parcel. So if we just come up the step... Oh, hello. This is different. Oh, that's so cool. He's created like a table and chairs for each of the members. And I love the fact he's put in little armour stands holding seeds, of all things. Oh, this is fantastic. Absolutely love this. This is a great addition. Anyway, yes, to the post office. So if we come into the post office... Oh, even more exciting. We have mail. We have mail. Okay. Looks like Yellow must have made a move in the old noughts and crosses. Let's have a look. Okay, yep, naturally he has gone across the bottom. So we are going to have to... We're going to have to block him off, aren't we? Can't let him get away with that. That's very cheeky. Yeah, so we put a cross there. Don't sign it. I am, one of these days we're going to play this game and I'm going to sign the book by accident. I know it's going to happen. It's just a case of when. And then we've also got a piece of paper that says, "Aren't you a cutie pie?" Now that is because I don't think I actually sort of showed it in the last episode. But when I last came here, I actually brought like a chest with some paper and an anvil so that people can actually post things more easily without having to go to and from bases or remember to bring paper and things with them. And I left a little note in Yellow's barrel just to let him know that I'd done that. So I'm assuming it's just because of that. So what we need to do now is, obviously, Yellow has received a parcel. Now, rather than just put all the dyes in his post, because I think that's a little bit too boring, we're going to put a chest on the wall here. And we're going to chuck all these in. And then, of course, we're going to chuck a sign on the front of here. And just put parcel. Actually, no. No. Let's do this a bit better. Attempted delivery for Yellow. And there you have it. We have left him a little parcel. Maybe we should charge him for it. Do we think we should charge him for it? That would be quite funny. The idea we've given him a gift and then charged him for it when he's not technically asked for it. Attempted delivery for Yellow. Special promotion. Special promo, that'll do. Special promo. We don't need to be exact with all the words. And then down here, we can put first time dye buyers box 1 diamond smile. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, he's got 1 stack of every coloured dye. That should get him going, and then we can negotiate prices come the future. But yeah, we've played the noughts and crosses, we've given him our parcel, and I think that should conclude what we're doing here in the Nether. And with the 2 farms complete and our present now delivered to Yellow, I think sadly that's going to be it for today's episode. It's been fun. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a like or consider subscribing. Remember, your feedback is always welcome down in the comments section. See you later, guys.